All right, everybody, good evening and welcome to the Integrity Racing Show, episode 12. As you can see, kind of one man banding it tonight with myself, and our guest tonight is Matt Bontempi. Our usual host, Todd, is still celebrating his win from 3 weeks ago, apparently. He's out in the Caribbean floating around on a boat somewhere. So we're going to do a little catching up. Obviously, we've had a couple weeks off. It's been kind of crazy for me the past couple weeks, but I'm glad to be back to do the show and looking forward to going over things with Matt and kind of catching up. We have two races we've had in the past couple weeks, some very clean racing, luckily, and we'll talk about that for a little bit. And then we'll have an interview with Matt and get some time with him and kind of see how he got into iRacing, and then some other stuff about him that you may not know. And then we'll look ahead towards New Hampshire, where we'll be heading after the off week here for 4th of July, and see what we can get into for Monday night. But first, what we're going to do is, like I said, Matt Bontempi is with us tonight. So how you doing tonight there, Matt?
I'm doing great, Jacob. It's a beautiful Thursday night, and I'm just ready to have a great time on the Integrity Racing Show with you.
Awesome. We appreciate you coming on. So, like I said, we're going to start off first, and I'm going to do my best Todd impression and try to get the little screen shares up, and so you can see what we're going to be talking about. But we're going to start and look at the results for Sonoma, which was 2 weeks ago. Basically, as predicted from our last show, Matt Busa was the class of the field for that race. And other than a couple late race spins he had, really was in his own zip code. The two spins actually made it look like I was much better at road course racing than I actually am. But I was able to bring it home in second for that race, which I was very happy about. And then as you look at the rest of the top five there, you see Brennan Burcroft, who was able to come back to a third place finish after actually starting in the back for that race, if I remember correctly. Our points leader, Andrew Fayash, the third, was in fourth. And then Brendan Kohler rounded out the top five for that race. So I know, Matt, you were in that race, and I'm trying to look down to see where you finished there. But kind of tell us your thoughts on Sonoma, and tell us how you think things played out.
Yeah, Jacob. Sonoma for me was not a great experience. I am not good at turning both right or left and right. Never been my thing, so didn't go as well as I would have wanted. I think, I had just been lapped by Busa on about lap 18, 19, I think it was, and I just lost it out of the first hairpin at turn 7, I think it is, the hard right hander into the S's, and threw myself solidly into the outside tire barrier, and didn't go as planned, but it was okay. I think that race went how everyone thought it would. Matt Busa dominated, absolutely positively. He led, 55 of 55 laps the entire race. Can't do much more than that. I think one of the big surprises for me, though, was how well Brendan Burcroft was able to come back from that bad starting spot. He did a great job driving through the field. I believe it was some sort of penalty in qualifying with one of the qualifying rules or something that sent him back there. I think it was the new creeping rule. But he did an awesome job driving through the field. I think kudos to him for doing that. I also think that track challenged like everyone might have expected it to. It was slick. The fixed setup was difficult to handle, but I think all in all, it was a good race.
Yeah, I think the differing strategies you saw throughout that race was pretty interesting to see how things played out. I know for that race, myself and a couple teammates actually changed our strategy mid-race. We had an idea that we were going to go in with a certain strategy and game plan, and as the race developed and people started to do certain things, that dynamic of the race really changed, and we were able to change strategy while still maintaining track position. So that definitely was interesting to watch how it played out. And obviously, like I told one of my teammates, you know, as much as I'd want to win and everybody's wanting to get that win, you can't even really focus on where Busa was, as he was doing a thing of his own, and he's just, he does really well at those road courses. So congratulations to Matt on the win from Sonoma, and to the top 5 finishers and those who are able to survive. I think it's kind of a survival race. Congratulations to you all as well for that. But so from there, we took a week, and basically we hit our halfway point of the season to a certain extent. We came back to Daytona for the night version of the Daytona racetrack with the Firecracker 400, if you will. Alan Roll was the sponsor of that race. So we had a little fun with Alan with the naming of the race. And that had its own strategy, and interesting things happen as well. We'll go ahead, excuse me, we'll go ahead and pull up the screen share for that and let you guys take a look at the result from Daytona. Matt, once again, you got a 14th place finish there, so you did a lot better at Daytona than you did at Sonoma. Talk a little bit about what your kind of team strategy was for that race, and then secondly, from that, how were you able to execute? I know some things might have happened, I think, during one of the pit stops or something like that. Why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me at a restrictor plate race, or any race for that matter, but especially a restrictor plate race, is you've got to survive. You've got to make it to the end to have a chance. A lot of people like to say that restrictor plate races are easier to win because everyone can keep up, but I think they're more difficult to win, in my opinion, because there's such an art to both the strategy and the drafting and the driving through the field of restrictor plate racing. For me, the big strategy was kind of to chill in the back, a little bit off the lead pack, and to try and maybe move up a little right before some pit stops started. So it was an 80-lap race. So it was a one-stopper. You wanted to make it to lap 40, 41, make your pit stop. Well, I did that, but shortly before pit stops, there was a big checkup off of turn 2, I believe it was. There was what was almost a wreck, but it cost me some track position, and since it was right before pit stops, I had to pit from a little further back than I would have liked to, and ran the risk of losing the lead draft, which sadly I did. But I worked really hard with some great drivers, and we were able to come away with the 14th place finish, I think he said it was. And coming on to pit road, though, it was kind of crazy. There were so many of us, and you know as well as anyone, Jacob, that when you're coming on to pit road at Daytona, there's a good chance someone's going to overshoot it, not be ready with their brakes like they need to be. And I think a few people actually got damaged from that. I think my teammate Andrew Payash did, and that set him back. It's wild getting on the pit road at Daytona.
Yeah, it is. I know one of our teammates on our team had the same misfortune. To kind of elaborate off of that, I know for Lockdown Racing, which is the team that Matt is a part of, y'all are usually up at the front for these restrictor plate races, and honestly, our team's usually the one that's hiding in the back somewhere. What went into making a different strategy than what you all normally do?
What went into that was we all had the intention of trying to qualify together. Me, Andrew, Marcus Lambert, and Nicholas Ford, who were going to qualify together. And I had connection issues getting into the server, actually. I think it received throughput me once. It dropped me entirely. And getting back in, and my teammates were awesome. They waited for me. We tried to get a lap, but by that point, we couldn't catch on with a different lead draft. And it was just failure on our part in qualifying to not be able to qualify up front and do that the way we needed to. But when you can't start up front on a restrictor plate track, you don't want to be in the middle to start, at least. And you have to get through it at some point, but you don't want to lose your car and try to get through it on lap 10 and not be there at lap 80. So I think that was a big part of it, was that we knew we needed to survive. So one thing that Andrew's always done that he's kind of brought on to me, Marcus, and Nick, is that he does that almost like Dale Jarrett restrictor plate strategy sometimes, where he'll start in the back, but instead of moving to the front late, he'll move right before pit stops, and that's kind of advantageous because it gets you in a good position to, when the field spreads out after pit stops, people check up to be there if it goes green to the end.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before, usually we hang around in the back, and that's our strategy for the race. But like I said, this time we wanted to try something differently. I know our team had a strategy that really worked almost to perfection. We really wanted to try to get either Brandon Kirkman, or who finished second, or Trevor Dalton, who had some issues at one of those pit stops, like you mentioned. We wanted to get them a win. We wanted to try to get them in the chase, and we felt relatively comfortable that myself and William Dunn and James Hudson are relatively comfortable in the points, which we'll look at here in a little bit. But we wanted to really try to have a team effort, and we had a team game plan that really worked out well. I think one of the things from the race that I really enjoyed seeing, or I thought was pretty neat, and I kind of talked about it with a few of the other drivers after the race, was the group mentality, or the group or team strategy to kind of try to place drivers up towards the front, or get people in position to kind of control the field, really. And I thought that was a really interesting chess match between our team and Tudor Green was up there at one point. And for all our, the funny part is, for all of our strategies and trying to put people in position to get the win, it was the guy who had no team at all with Tom Wetmore who was able to grab the win. I mean, he played his cards right and used the moves he needed to make to get the win there. And like I mentioned before, my teammate Brandon took second place. I was in third. Our other teammate James Hudson was in fourth, and then rounding out the top five for Daytona was Drew Carroll of Brawl Chassis Works. So definitely a very interesting race. No cautions, which is rare for a Daytona race. This is one of the quickest races we've probably had, but no caution. So we've gone 2 races without a caution. We'll see how well that lasts going into New Hampshire. But yeah, like I said, overall a great race. Once again, pretty much a full field. And once again, we thank everybody for coming out, and thanking Allen Roll for sponsoring that race. Now with that, we're going to move on and kind of change gears a little bit. We're going to go into get a few questions with Matt, get to know him a little better, and see what he has to say. So basically, obviously, we're going to start with some of the easy questions. How did you get into iRacing? How did you hear about it, and what made you want to pursue it?
Yeah, well, I'd love to tell you exactly how, but honestly, I don't completely remember. What I do remember is I so badly wanted to race in real life, but like many others who I believe are on iRacing for the exact same reason, my family didn't have the money to put me in a race car. My mom didn't want to see me in one for one because it's obviously pretty dangerous. And I think it might have been mentioned on some NASCAR broadcast or something about Dale Jr. using it. I'm not exactly sure, but I looked at the website, and gosh, it was 2010, so I guess I was 14 years old, and I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I want to do this iRacing thing, and I want to get a wheel and do it. And I did for a little bit in 2010. I ended up taking a break until 2012, and then I don't think I've taken a break since.
I got you. Yeah, I can understand for sure the mom not wanting you to drive thing. I have with my chum car team I'm starting to get into. I'm 28 and mom still has that kind of reaction. So I understand how that goes. So obviously, for those who don't know, Matt is part of Lockdown Racing, which is a Peak Antifreeze team with Andrew Fayash, and runs that series regularly. So how did you get hooked up with Andrew and his team? And kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so back in 2014, I had just decided with current teammate of mine at Fastland Motorsports, a guy named Victor Bartlett, we decided we wanted to form our own team, right? We were unhappy with how things were going, not doing our best, so we switched teams. Anyway, formed our own team with a guy named Joshua Hanner and formed BBH Motorsports, Bontempi Bartlett, Hanner Motorsports. Well, Hanner wasn't there forever. We actually added Nicholas Ward back then, who was supposed to kind of help with setups, although that didn't work out that way. He's an awesome teammate, great friend, and great guy with spotting. He actually, right before the 2014 Pro Series, I had him talk to Andrew about seeing if he would want to come over. We didn't have a ton going on for us then, but we were a decent enough team, and Andrew didn't have a team, so we felt it was worth a try. So me being the crazy advantageous team owner I am, I was able to get Nick to get Andrew on board, and did pretty well. We kept him as black stripe that season, and fast forward through 2015 NPAS, all the way to 2015 Pro. We realized at that point, although we have many new members since then and great pieces, that maybe we need a little more help for that 2015 Pro Series. So I talked to my buddy Logan Sheets over at Lockdown Racing, who at that point didn't have too many people on that team. I think it was down mainly into the core group of David Rattler, Patrick Crabtree, Sheets, and I think Alan Goodman was on the team at that time too. And we formed an alliance for the 2015 Pro Series. Worked really well. Decided to call it a merger after the Pro Series, and we didn't have a huge attachment to our team name at that point. We actually changed it to No Limit Sim Racing, just for the sake of changing the name, I guess. So they had an attachment to their name, so we took on the name Lockdown Racing, and the rest is history. We obviously were able to get the win in 2015 Pro with Andrew Richmond with a great Integrity Racing car paint scheme going on that week. So thank you for that, Jacob. Yeah, it's just been a pleasure to be able to crew chief for Andrew ever since 2014 Pro. He joined us when we weren't that great, and he stuck with it, and he helped build something. And we're not the top guys out there, but we try really hard, and we've got him 10th in points more than halfway through the season right now in the NASCAR PK Free Series, and got David Rattler, his teammate, real close up there as well in the top 30 to being a go or go homer, not locked-in driver, to retaining his NPAS license. So that'd be something spectacular if we could pull off both feats for them.
Awesome. Yeah, I think one of the things you mentioned there was the definite, I think you really see for those of us who've been following, or at least keeping somewhat track, the definite improvement in the past season between maybe when you were, for lack of a better term, on your own, and then after the merger, you could really see where the dividends were paying off as far as maybe the setups, and then y'all kind of gel together to where you go from where Andrew was, I guess a year or two ago, was one of those go or go homers to make each NPAS race, to now, like you said, he's in the top 10 in points with Lockdown Racing and what you've all built. So I think that's really a credit to you guys for being able to make that happen. So kind of leading into that, obviously, as you mentioned, you're the crew chief for Andrew for the NPAS series, and I'm sure you have help as well. But what got you interested to wanting to do the crew chief side of things, as far as building setups and helping Andrew kind of get the right feel for the car as you do the NPAS? And obviously, there's a lot of time and testing that goes on with these NPAS teams. Something that maybe we won't see, as maybe myself or others who run in the league, which is fixed on a week-to-week basis, but something that y'all, I would imagine, deal with pretty heavily. What got you into that, and what are you trying to accomplish when you're a crew chief for an NPAS team like Lockdown Racing?
Well, I think what got me into that was back a number of years ago. I think about that 2012, 2013 period when I got back on iRacing. I was really interested in learning how to make setups, especially for the open setup trucks, and I started reading all these setup books, or whatever, or not books, but setup matrices that said what different adjustments did to handling, and I tried to look up all of these kinds of things of what I could learn to do with setups, and I really started to develop a passion for it. I really started to enjoy putting a good setup together and everything. And I think the one big setback for me there was, while I try to pride myself on being a pretty decent driver, I definitely wasn't that top, and not that top level driver that Andrew is or some others are. So I wanted to see what I could do if I could put my mind and my setup abilities, and of course the setup abilities of my teammates and what they can do to a top level driver. And I think that's what really inspired me to work with Andrew or whatnot, because I really wanted to see what can I do and how can I help him, and how can I do things even with strategy before or after races, just trying to figure out what we can do to put the best car together every week. And you mentioned that testing thing. I can't even tell you how many hours of testing we've put in over the last few years. I mean, at times it feels like a second job, even though I don't have a first job right now. But it's one of those things where I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. And while testing can certainly be strenuous at times, I think at Lockdown Racing we have a really good group of guys with me, Keegan Leahy, who puts in God knows how many hours, Jarlteen, who we just added in the last month or so, who puts in great hours with setup work as well. And of course, Andrew and all the guys in between who tune in and put in hours themselves. It's just, man, I'm really fortunate to be able to work with such great guys and be able to crew chief for as great a driver and as great a friend as Andrew. Like, I can't even tell you how fun it is to go into that race, pick a strategy, know what you're doing, and just try to play it out and see how the race plays out. I mean, I remember the first race we tried to qualify for was Texas in the 2014 Pro Series. Our first race when we actually DNQ'd. We were the first or second car out. And it was funny. I was talking to Nick Ward then, and he was spotting that race or was going to, and it was funny. We said, I wonder if this is going to be it. But Andrew didn't leave. We went to the next week at Phoenix and we made the race. I think we finished 14th that week or something like that. It was a great run, and didn't miss any races the rest of that season. But man, I remember the feeling when I saw the cars going in pace lap at Phoenix, and it was just so cool to be a part of that and to see all the hard work we put in, go into something just like making the race, and then to see how that hard work transfers to winning a race in the Pro Series at Richmond and doing what we're doing this year in the points. It's fun, and it's cool to see how it plays out and how we can do the best we can.
Awesome. That definitely sounds like a lot of good stuff going on for that. So get a little separate from iRacing real quick before we head into some of the other league stuff we're going to talk about tonight. So what do you do separate, generally speaking, separate from iRacing? Do you have any other hobbies you do? Just tell us a little bit about it yourself. Where are you from? And what other stuff you may get into separate from iRacing?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Suffolk County, New York, Long Island. We've got the best pizza around, the best bagels, and it's not even close. So if you don't live on Long Island or in New York City, you don't know a thing about pizza and bagels, and especially pizza bagels. I mean, come on, combine the two and you got the best. But one of my biggest passions is actually bowling. I picked up bowling, gosh, it was about 10 or 11 months ago. It was last August, so I guess 11 months ago. And it's funny because my sister, who lives in Albany, she came back from doing something there, and she was visiting for, I think, my mom's birthday. I don't even know what it was, but she was visiting, and me, her, my dad, and my mom went bowling. And gosh, I was terrible. I couldn't break 70, and I felt bad about it. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go to the bowling alley this day, and I'm going to try to bowl and see if I can bowl any better. And I absolutely got hooked. No pun intended, because you can't hook the ball. But now a year later, I've gone from not being able to break 70 to averaging 180. Got a high game of 243. I hit just a week or so ago. Since then, I've broken 230, I think 4 or 5 times. It's been a great run, and I'm really enjoying it. I can't even tell you how cool it is to just hook the ball. I have my bowling ball drilled for fingertip grip, which is a way that you can throw the ball. It's how it's drilled, it's how deep it's drilled, and you can hook it when you do that much easier. So it's a really cool thing to do, and I just enjoy the heck out of bowling.
Awesome. Cool deal. Got to learn something new tonight. That's cool. All right. So that was our time for Matt and kind of get to know him a little more. So now we're going to kind of delve into some of the different standings and stuff we have set up for the year to kind of get you caught up on where you may be positioned within the season standings and stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and pull that up and kind of go over like one of the things I didn't figure out as far as all of Todd's tricks was how to zoom it in. So it might be a little hard to see. But basically, what it shows there is obviously, as he has been for most of the year, Andrew sits atop the standings, and followed by Tyler Herr from 2 to Green, myself and William Dunn, are third and fourth from Integrity Racing Team. And as you can kind of look down the standings, a couple things I'll bring up real quick is obviously the top 20 for those who can be locked in. That's ever rotating. It looks like Bradley Havyard is the last one on there, and he's kind of working his way off. So you got a couple drivers. Alan's locked in already, but you have Drew Carroll and Chris Schitzler and Joseph Yates, who are all in contention to move up to that one spot. So that's a very interesting, aspect to look at. And then there's also the chase cutoff, which I don't have that. Adam does a great job of putting that together. But I think the cutoff is somewhere right around 13th or so between either Carlos and Nick Ward, who's Matt's teammate, or Nick and Brad Wren, somewhere in there. But kind of give us your thoughts a little bit there, Matt, of the point standings, and how do you think things will progress as we work our way towards Richmond and the start of the chase?
Well, yeah, Jacob, no surprise to me that Andrew's on top of the standings. He's ran a heck of a lot of races. I'm not sure he's missed one yet this year, and he's ran well in all of them, so that's the expected when you get those results. I think as far as the chase cutoff, man, it's going to be a wild run to the finish. I haven't ran all the races yet this year, so that's put me back in points. I had some poor finishes from faults of my own in earlier races, like Sonoma. Martinsville's run that especially hurt because I got some front end damage to start early in that race from a restart, which set me back, and then I ended up wrecking out shortly after. But I think the key with making the chase is you've got to really put your effort into practicing each week. For me, currently not being in the top 20 in points, I have to qualify into each race every week. And we're still getting full fields almost every week. I think we sent someone home this past week even. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, gosh, it's really tight competition to try and make the races even. So I think especially when you get to the beginning of next season, we're probably going to be having, if it continues like it did last year, 60-plus drivers trying to make 43 spots. Like, you want to be in that top 20 and be locked in. And if you get in that chase, you're there. You're in the top 20 because you're not pulling out of the top 16. So, I mean, for me especially, I know that there are a couple races I feel like I'll have a good shot at winning. I feel like one of them has to be Bristol. I ran well there in the spring, but I ended up having some misfortune on a restart. I just didn't know, or I didn't drive correctly, and I got into the side of someone and got sent into the side wall when running into the top 5. I know Kentucky, which is delayed, but I think we'll be running in the next off week, should be a really good opportunity for me. But I think the key for anyone who's outside of the top chase cutoff at 13th or whatnot is if you're within like 4 or 5 spots of it and you're close, I think you got a points race all day. People are going to miss races because it's the summer. People are going to get in wrecks, so you got a points race. But if you're further back like me, I feel like you've just got to go for a win. Like, if you have an opportunity to pull a Chris Schitzler special and take 2 tires late in the race or something, I feel like you do it if it's feasible and you potentially keep the lead from it if things go your way. I mean, there's a certain point where, like, if you're doing a move and there's no hope of it working and it's not going to work, then you don't do it. But gosh, you've got to put in a lot of practice time and do everything you can to make that chase. I can't tell you how much I want to make it, and I'll be digging real hard these last few weeks. I see Kansas, where I called out that I switched lanes before the start and had to take what was a lead off pit road to an EOL. I see that as a missed opportunity for me. But gosh, Brian Terry, I think it was, did a great job and won that race. He was prize winner and got in. So, man, the chase just makes it all that more exciting, Jacob.
Yeah, it certainly does. And those are some great points there, Matt. So now we'll kind of move on and look at our team challenge, which over the past 2 weeks, as I pull that up, has gotten a little more interesting. We've our team from Integrity Racing here has done a really good job over the past 2 weeks to bring home. Most of our drivers are actually coming in the top 10. We've kind of rotated out a little bit here and there, and we've gained some ground on you guys, but y'all are still far and away the best team so far with Lockdown Racing, and Two to Green is nipping at our heels for that second position. and then it kind of, after 2 to green, it kind of breaks up into groups. You have basically 4th through 6th. Looking at it there, from 1 up to go or go home is pretty much in a group of its own. And then Tifosi down to Out of Gas Racing from that 7th to 10th is in their own little group, it looks like. And then and poor Fine Line Team was rounding out the field there. But I think that dynamic going as this will run through the season will definitely be interesting to see how it all averages out there at the end. But how important is the team challenge there to Lockdown Racing to kind of hang on to that top spot?
I think it's really important to all of us because it's like if we can take that home, then we're the most consistent, best team over the season, and that's something we take a lot of pride in. Like, I mean, when there are races where our cars are wrecked, but we can get back out there in time, for the most part, we're making sure if we have 35 minutes of damage, once we get that fixed, we want to be back out there because we want to take that team challenge. That's something we wouldn't have done in past seasons because there wasn't as much incentive to it. But gosh, we want to make sure we take that home. I think it would mean a lot to all of us. So I sure hope we can hold on to the lead, and we'll see what happens with that. I think you guys at the Integrity Racing Team are a good team. You guys could definitely get there if we struggle and you guys step it up a little. So never know. 2 to Green's a sleeping giant. They do a really good job at some of these tracks and go and get it. And there are all kinds of teams who can do that. So we'll see. We want to hold on to it, though. It's very important.
Awesome. Well, the last thing we'll look up here real quick is the Rookie of the Year. I do, while I pull this up, I do want to say a great thank you to Adam de Blasio, who keeps track of all these spreadsheets and all the math that I don't care to do, to be perfectly honest. But as I pull this up, speaking of, he's at the top of the charts with 114 points. And then looking down a little bit, you have 2 guys from Brawl Chassis Works and Brennan Burcroft and Ty McWhorter in 2nd and 3rd. And then Brad Wren from Tifosi and Drew Carroll round out the top 5. The one thing I'll bring up for the Rookie of the Year, and then we'll kind of move on real quick, is that this next race heading into New Hampshire is going to be the start of the cutoff, basically, meaning that like people like Adam and Brad, it looks like, will start to replace races that they've run. So their lowest point total will come away, and they'll only be adding races that they've done better than their lowest point total. So this will give the opportunity for Brendan, who's run 14 races, as well as Ty, to kind of close the gap on Adam until they have to start replacing races, and then it's on from there. So that's definitely not over as far as that battle is concerned, and I'm definitely interested to see what comes of the final results from that, and we'll keep a look at it on the show as we go from week to week. So we're kind of running over a little bit here, so we'll kind of touch on New Hampshire real quick. And usually by this point, I've run a few laps on the track we've gone to kind of get prepped for the show. But as I said, it's been a little busy with everything else other than iRacing. So I haven't had a chance yet. Matt, have you had a chance to run any laps at New Hampshire, or have any tips that we might want to think towards as we head there Monday night?
No, I have not. I'm unprepared so far this week, but I think one thing you can look for is I think league member, I think it's Carlos Fonseca, right? He posts in the NIS forums, NASCAR Racing Series forums on the iRacing site, a great guide on how to do a lap at each week's track. So I think that's something to check out. I think that's a great thing that Carlos does. And man, it's great to have such good league members that are such good members of the iRacing community and the Integrity Racing League. I think the name says it all, Jacob. You named it well, because I think we've got a lot of integrity in this league.
Well, thank you. I certainly appreciate that. Like I said, had an off week, so I'm looking forward to get back to racing and get back with you guys out on the track. Once again, to kind of wrap things up, I want to say a special thank you to Matt for joining us tonight. Todd should be back in the hosting chair, probably doing a better job than I. Next week, we'll kind of go over what happened from New Hampshire. We'll have Hopefully Tyler Herr, I'll kind of spill the beans on this, will be our sponsor for Monday night's race. So hopefully he'll be on the show next Thursday night, and we'll talk to him a little bit. And once again, thank you for watching the Integrity Racing Show, and we look forward to seeing you Monday night.